Today, we uncover the 8 bread brands the UK should be warning about. We reveal the truth about those innocent-looking loaves sitting on supermarket shelves. But the bread we grew up trusting, the bread our parents bought, the bread our grandparents swore by, has quietly changed, one betrayal at a time. Because somewhere along the line, bread stopped being bread and started becoming an engineered product that still looked the part, but only in the same way a knockoff looks like the real thing. Number 8. Warburtons. Warburtons is the perfect example of how far modern bread has drifted from the real thing, because this isn't just bread anymore, it's bread that has been run through a system so heavy, so mechanical and so unnatural that most people have no idea what they're actually eating. The branding tells you it's trusted, it's British, it's family, but the more you look into it, the more you realise that Chorleywood bread process doesn't just speed things up, it removes what's natural. The good bacteria that would develop during slow fermentation, the complex flavours that come from time, the natural structures that make bread digestible, all stripped away to create a product that can be made in under 3 hours and sit on a supermarket shelf for a week at a time. And here's the part people are only just waking up to. The ingredient list behind this bread is moving further and further away from simplicity. Emulsifiers like E472E and E471 that your great-grandmother wouldn't recognise. Dough conditioners like L-cysteine, which can be derived from duck feathers or human hair. Yes, you read that right. Not because it improves flavour or nutrition, but because it makes industrial production faster. The result is bread that feels soft and uniform, slice after identical slice, but what people taste isn't the richness of slow fermented dough, it's the artificial smoothness that comes from processing, from emulsifiers, from removing natural variation and concentrating speed. And because the bread behind Warburtons isn't coming from traditional bakeries or slow-rise methods, it's the same high-speed industrial system used across the entire sector. The final product feels more like a manufactured sponge than something made with care. Warburtons is marketed and priced as a household staple, but peel back the label and what you're looking at is an industrial product shaped by machinery and chemistry, not by bakers and time. People report bloating, sluggish digestion, and that heavy feeling after eating just a few slices. That's not a coincidence, that's your body struggling with bread that was never given time to develop properly.
Number 7. Hovis. Hovis sits at number 7 as the heritage brand that's forgotten what heritage actually means. The marketing still shows cobbled hills and nostalgic imagery, British tradition, strength through the generations, but the reality is far less romantic. When you examine what's actually in the bag, the story gets a lot less wholesome. Take their standard white loaf. It contains caramel colouring, which sounds harmless until you realise this isn't just burnt sugar. The caramel colouring used in processed foods is created through a chemical process that produces compounds that have raised concerns in safety studies. The colour isn't there for flavour, it's there to make cheap bread look richer than it actually is. Hovis also uses palm oil in several of their products, not the kind that offers any nutritional benefit, but heavily processed palm oil used purely as a cheap fat to improve texture and extend shelf life. And here's what really bothers people about Hovis. They market themselves as the wholesome traditional choice. They put wholemeal on the label and add some seeds to the crust. But when you flip that bag over and read the ingredients, you realise you've been sold nostalgia, not nutrition. Their wholemeal range uses wheat that's been stripped during milling, then recombined later. Real wholemeal bread should be made from flour that was never separated in the first place. By splitting and adding back, they destroy much of the mineral absorption potential and natural structure. It's wholemeal theatre. They also add soya flour to many loaves, not for nutrition, but because it's cheaper than wheat flour and helps the dough rise faster. Unless it specifically says organic, you're almost certainly eating genetically modified soy. That's the image versus reality gap that defines Hovis today.
Number 6. Kingsmill. Kingsmill lands at number 6 because of one simple fact. Their white bread has a glycemic index higher than pure sugar. Let that sink in for a moment. You eat toast in the morning, thinking you're having a simple breakfast, and your blood sugar spikes faster than if you'd eaten sweets. When you consume high GI foods like this, your body panics. Your pancreas floods your system with insulin. Then your blood sugar crashes hard, leaving you tired, irritable, and craving more carbs within an hour. That cycle isn't accidental, it's the result of refined flour, added glucose-fructose syrup, and processing methods designed for speed, not for your metabolic health. And here's the really sneaky part. Kingsmill's 50-50 bread, marketed as a healthier option because it blends white and wholemeal flour, still contains added glucose-fructose syrup. This sweetener has been linked to fatty liver disease, obesity, and metabolic syndrome in multiple studies. Why would bread need high fructose syrup? Because it makes it taste slightly sweet, which increases the likelihood you'll buy it again. It triggers the same reward centers in your brain that addictive substances do. The brand also uses refined rapeseed oil in many of their loaves. Rapeseed oil, when processed at high temperatures, can form trans fats. These are among the most harmful fats you can consume, raising bad cholesterol while lowering good cholesterol. And because Kingsmill is owned by Associated British Foods, the same company behind massive retail operations, every decision is made through the lens of profit margins, not your well-being. People describe feeling hungry again within an hour of eating Kingsmill. That's not psychological. That's blood sugar chaos engineered by the ingredients. Your body is screaming for real nutrition, but all it got was refined flour, seed oils, and sugar disguised as bread.
Number 5. Sainsbury's own brand bread. Sainsbury's budget bread sits at number 5, and it represents everything that happens when price becomes the only priority. This range doesn't come from artisan bakeries or traditional methods, it comes from the lowest cost end of the industrial supply chain, and that shows up in every ingredient. These loaves contain calcium propionate, a preservative that extends shelf life by preventing mold growth. Sounds useful, right? But here's the problem. Studies have linked calcium propionate to behavioral issues in children, including irritability, sleep problems, and difficulty concentrating. One study found that when children with attention issues consumed bread with this preservative, their symptoms worsened significantly. When it was removed from their diet, behavior improved. Sainsbury's budget loaves use it in higher concentrations to maximize shelf life because these loaves sit in warehouses and distribution centers longer than premium brands. The flour quality is also a massive issue. This is the cheapest possible flour, often bleached with chemicals to make it appear white and clean. Flour naturally whitens over time through oxidation, but that takes months. Manufacturers use chemical bleaching agents like chlorine dioxide to whiten flour in hours instead of months. These chemicals don't just change color, they alter the molecular structure of the flour itself. And then they add back synthetic vitamins to meet legal fortification requirements. But your body doesn't absorb synthetic vitamins the same way it absorbs nutrients from whole foods. You're essentially eating nutritionally dead bread that's been given a vitamin injection so it can legally be called fortified. Many loaves also use mono and diglycerides as emulsifiers, often derived from animal fats, though the label won't tell you which animals. If you avoid certain foods for religious or ethical reasons, you might be unknowingly consuming something that violates your beliefs.
Number 4. Tesco Value Bread. Tesco Value lands at number 4, and it's here because of what they choose to hide behind vague ingredient labels. This bread uses modified wheat starch, created by chemically or physically altering regular starch to change its properties. This can involve treating starch with acids, enzymes, or heat to make it behave differently in industrial baking. The result is bread that feels soft for days longer than natural bread should, but it comes at a cost. Modified starches can cause digestive issues in sensitive individuals, leading to bloating, cramping, and sluggish digestion. And here's what makes it worse. Each slice contains less than 1 gram of fiber. Your body needs around 30 grams of fiber per day for optimal gut health. If you're eating bread that provides almost none, you're missing a crucial opportunity for nutrition. Tesco also uses something called vegetable oil in their budget ranges, which is a vague term that can include heavily refined rapeseed oil, palm oil, or soybean oil. These oils are processed at high temperatures, often rancid before they even reach the bread-making facility, and they contain high levels of omega-6 fatty acids. When consumed in excess, omega-6 fats promote chronic inflammation in the body, not the acute inflammation from an injury, but low-level constant inflammation that silently damages your cells, tissues, and organs over years. This kind of inflammation contributes to arthritis, heart disease, diabetes, and even certain cancers. And one of the biggest dietary contributors is excessive omega-6 from refined vegetable oils hidden in everyday foods like bread. What frustrates people most about Tesco is that they're the largest supermarket chain in the UK. They have the resources and leverage to source better ingredients to make real bread at affordable prices, but instead they choose to maximise profit margins by selling the cheapest possible product and calling it value.
Number 3. Asda Smart Price. Asda Smart Price takes the number 3 spot, and once you understand what goes into these loaves, you'll see why. If you've ever wondered how bread can cost 50 pence, this is your answer. This bread is engineered for one thing only: maximum profit through minimum ingredient cost. The flour used in these loaves is the lowest grade possible. We're talking about flour that's been so heavily processed and chemically treated that it barely resembles the wheat it came from. It's been bleached with chlorine gas or benzoyl peroxide to make it white, destroying any remaining nutrients in the process. But the real issue here is something called azodicarbonamide, a flour improver used to make dough more elastic and easier to work with industrially. Here's the disturbing part. Azodicarbonamide is also used to make yoga mats and shoe soles. When this chemical breaks down during baking, it forms compounds that have been flagged as possible carcinogens in safety reviews. The amounts used are tiny and within legal limits, but the question remains: why take the risk at all? Why eat bread that contains a chemical also found in gym equipment? Asda Smart Price bread also contains less than 1 gram of fibre per slice. Without fibre, food moves slowly through your intestines, toxins aren't eliminated efficiently, and you end up constipated, bloated, and uncomfortable. And here's the socio-economic angle that makes this even harder to accept. Who buys this bread? Families struggling to make ends meet, people who have no choice but to buy the cheapest option available. And what are they getting? The lowest quality, most nutritionally bankrupt product that can legally be sold as bread. That's not a consumer failure, that's a system failure, and it's why this loaf sits so high on our list of shame.
Number 2. Lidl Bakery Bread. Lidl's in-store bakery bread takes the number 2 spot, and it's here for one specific reason: the illusion of freshness. Walk into any Lidl and you're hit with the smell of baking bread. It feels artisan, it feels fresh, it feels real, but it's not. Lidl's bakery bread uses a technique called par baking. The bread is made in factories abroad, particularly in Germany and Poland, then partially baked, frozen and shipped to UK stores, where it's finished in in-store ovens. Why does this matter? Because par-baked bread requires additional preservatives and additives to survive the freezing, transport and reheating process. These aren't always listed clearly on packaging because they're classified as processing aids rather than direct ingredients, but they're there, holding the structure together through a journey that real bread was never meant to take. Lidl has also had multiple product recalls over the years, plastic fragments found in loaves, metal pieces discovered by customers. These aren't isolated incidents, they're signs of large-scale mechanical production, where quality control becomes nearly impossible at the volumes they're operating. And then there's the salt and sugar content. Some of their white loaves contain over 1 gram of salt per 100 grams of bread, meaning just 4 slices give you nearly a third of your daily salt limit before you've even had lunch or dinner. Excessive salt doesn't just raise blood pressure, it damages the lining of your blood vessels, forces your kidneys to work harder, and causes calcium to leach from your bones, contributing to osteoporosis over time. When bread is frozen, ice crystals form within the dough structure, rupturing cell walls and breaking down starches. When the bread is thawed and finished, it can never fully recover its original texture. To compensate, manufacturers add extra gluten, gums and emulsifiers to hold everything together. The bread feels soft in your hand, but your stomach absolutely feels the difference.
Number 1. Aldi Village Bakery. And here we are at number 1, the worst offender, Aldi Village Bakery. Let me be clear, this isn't about being anti-Aldi. They've made food more affordable for millions, but their bread is where cost-cutting crosses a line that shouldn't be crossed.
Village bakery bread is made in enormous centralized factories that produce hundreds of thousands of loaves per day. At that scale, quality control becomes impossible. The flour comes from the cheapest suppliers, often blended from wheat sources across multiple countries. There's no traceability. You have no idea where your wheat was grown, how it was treated, or what pesticides were used. The dough is machine mixed at ultra-high speeds, generating heat that breaks down gluten structure. It's then divided by weight, placed in tins, and sent through industrial ovens that bake hundreds of loaves simultaneously. This entire process, from flour to bagged loaf, takes under 3 hours. Traditional bread making takes a minimum of 12 to 16 hours. You simply cannot create nutritious, digestible bread in 3 hours. It's physically impossible. Some of Aldi's specialty loaves have been found to contain potassium bromate, a flour improver that's been banned in the EU, Canada, Brazil, and China because it's classified as a possible carcinogen. When heated during baking, most of it converts to a safer compound, but residual amounts remain. And while those amounts are tiny, the cumulative effect of eating this bread daily for years is unknown. The salt content is also staggering. A single slice can contain 0.4 grams of salt. If you're eating 6 slices a day, which isn't unusual for someone having toast for breakfast and sandwiches for lunch, that's 2.4 grams of salt just from bread alone. The NHS recommends no more than 6 grams per day total. Excess salt is directly linked to high blood pressure, stroke, and heart disease. But here's what makes Aldi's approach particularly deceptive. They have a super-seeded range that looks incredibly healthy. It's covered in seeds. It looks nutritious. Then you check the ingredients and find that the base is still refined white flour with added gluten to make it chewier. The seeds are just sprinkled on top for appearance. You're paying extra for what looks like health food, but underneath it's the same problematic bread with a seed disguise.
What to eat instead? Now let's talk about bread that's actually worth your time and money. Bread that still respects the basics: flour, water, salt, time. If you want real bread, seek out local independent bakeries, where dough is mixed that morning, where you can smell it baking, where the baker actually knows what sourdough means. Yes, it costs more, but you're paying for real food made by real people. For supermarket options, look for organic ranges like Biona or Burtonnet. These brands use traditional methods, genuine sourdough cultures, and ingredients you can actually recognize. The loaves cost between £2 and £3, but they're free from emulsifiers, processing aids, and chemical shortcuts. Real sourdough made with just flour, water, and salt is ideal because the fermentation process breaks down compounds that cause digestive issues and lowers the glycemic impact. The goal isn't to never eat bread again. The goal is to eat bread that nourishes you rather than slowly undermining your health with every slice. Because the uncomfortable truth is this: you've been conditioned to accept terrible bread. You've been trained to think bread should be soft, springy, and identical slice after slice. You've been taught that bread lasting a week in the cupboard is normal. But it's not normal, it's engineered. And once you taste real bread again, slow fermented, full of flavour, with actual texture and character, you'll realise exactly what's been stolen from you. Are you eating any of these brands right now? Have you noticed bloating, that heavy feeling, or constant hunger after eating certain loaves? Drop a comment below, because your experience might help someone else avoid the same trap. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.